Have you ever been in trouble? No, not just regular trouble like being late for work or forgetting to pay a bill. I'm talking about real, deep, soul-shaking trouble. The kind of trouble where the air gets thick, where aunties stop gossiping to stare at you, and where your own father suddenly finds the wall very interesting to look at. The kind of trouble that you know, deep in your bones, will be spoken about at family gatherings for the next 20 years. If you haven't, then let me tell you about my cousin Emeka. And let me ask you this. Have you ever tasted a pot of perfectly made Nigerian party jollof rice? I mean the kind that's cooked outside, over a firewood hearth, with that smoky flavor that clings to every single grain. The kind that's so deeply red, it looks like sunset in a bowl. If you have, then you're one step closer to understanding the magnitude of what Emeka did. Because Emeka didn't just get into trouble, he committed a crime. A culinary crime. A crime of the heart and stomach. He messed with his grandmother's jollof rice. The story begins on a hot Saturday in Surulere, Lagos. The air was thick, not just with the usual Lagos humidity that sticks to your skin like a second shirt, but with sound. The distant hum of a generator, the cheerful shouting of kids playing street football, and coming from one particular compound, the unmistakable sound of a big family party getting started. This was Mama Efe's compound, and today was her 75th birthday party. To call Mama Efe a woman is like calling a lion a cat. She was small, yes, but she carried herself with the gravity of a queen. Her face was a beautiful map of her life, with lines of laughter around her eyes and lines of fierce determination around her mouth. When she walked, her wrapper, a vibrant explosion of green and gold Ankara fabric, swished with authority. Everything in the compound revolved around her. Her word was law, her smile was a blessing, and her cooking was legendary, especially her jollof rice. People came from all over Lagos for a taste of Mama Efe's jollof. It wasn't just food, it was an event. It was the taste of home, of celebration, of love made edible. The secret, she'd say with a twinkle in her eye, wasn't in any fancy ingredient. It was in the smoke. It was in the patience. It was in knowing exactly when the pot was ready to be sealed, trapping all that flavor inside until the rice was cooked to tender perfection. The main stage for this culinary magic was the backyard. A massive blackened pot, big enough to bathe a small child in, sat proudly on a tripod of bricks over a crackling firewood fire. This was the throne, and Mama Efe was the queen. She sat on a low wooden stool, not cooking yet, but observing. She was supervising the blending of the peppers, the slicing of the onions, and the washing of the rice. Everything had to be perfect. Her lieutenants, a group of formidable aunties, bustled around her, awaiting their orders.
TBC, that pepper blend is not red enough. Add 2 more tatashe peppers.
Red bell pepper, she commanded, without even looking up from peeling a clove of garlic.
Yes, Mama.
Auntie Busy scurried away.
Funke, stop pressing your phone and come and wash this rice again. Wash it until the water runs as clear as your conscience should be.
Our granddaughter Funke sighed dramatically but obeyed. This was the rhythm of the house, a symphony of preparation, and Mama Efe was the conductor. Into this perfectly controlled chaos walked Emeka. Emeka was Mama Efe's first grandson. He was tall, handsome, and had just returned to Nigeria after getting his master's degree in London. He wore skinny jeans that were a little too tight for the Lagos heat, and trendy glasses that seemed to scream, "I know things you don't." He was a good boy, with a good heart, but London had filled his head with ideas. And today, he had brought his biggest idea yet. Her name was Zainab. Zainab was lovely. She was smart, polite, and smitten with Emeka.
Oh my God.
She was also, understandably, terrified. Meeting your boyfriend's entire extended family at his legendary grandmother's 75th birthday party is a trial by fire. She clutched her handbag like a shield, smiling shyly at the whirlwind of faces being introduced to her.
This is my Auntie PC. This is my Uncle Chike. This is my cousin Dele.
Emeka paraded her around, puffing his chest out. Finally, he led her to the backyard, to the queen herself. "Mama, good afternoon," Emeka beamed, crouching down respectfully. "This is Zainab, Mama Efe looked Zainab up and down. It wasn't an unkind look, just a thorough one. It was a look that assessed character, upbringing, and future grandchild-bearing potential all in about 5 seconds. Finally, she smiled. A warm, genuine smile that made Zainab feel like she could finally breathe. "Welcome, my daughter," Mama Efe said, her voice raspy from the smoke. "You are beautiful.
Oh my God.
Emeka, you have tried." Everyone relaxed. The first test was passed. Emeka, however, was just getting started. He looked at the scene around him. The firewood, the giant pot, the manual grinding of spices, and he saw not tradition, but inefficiency. "Mama," he began, a dangerous glint in his eye. "This is all so wonderful, so authentic." Mama Efe nodded. "It is the way. But you know," Emeka continued, standing up and adopting a professorial tone, "in London, we discovered so many ways to elevate classic dishes. For example, the Spanish have a dish called paella. They use a special kind of smoked paprika that gives it an incredible depth of flavor. And for health, many people are now substituting regular rice with things like quinoa. It has a higher protein content." Silence. The only sound was the crackle of the fire. Auntie BC paused mid-chop. Funke stopped scrolling on her phone. They all stared at Emeka. It was like he had just walked into a church and suggested they replace the communion wine with a smoothie. Mama Efe looked at her grandson. She didn't get angry. She just looked confused, as if he had started speaking a language she didn't understand. "Quinoa," she repeated slowly. "What is that one?" "It's a grain, Mama. Very healthy. And this smoked paprika," he said, pulling a small fancy tin from his bag, "it would add a whole new dimension to your jollof, a fusion of cultures." Zainab, sensing the sudden drop in temperature, gently tugged on Emeka's arm. "Maybe now's not the best time, honey," she whispered. But Emeka was on a roll. He was trying to impress Zainab. He wanted to show her that he was a modern man, a man of the world, but also one who respected his roots by improving them. Mama Efe just shook her head and chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "My jollof does not need any dimension. It is already jollof. Oya, go and greet your uncles. They are asking for you." It was a clear dismissal. The case was closed, or so she thought. An hour later, the cooking was in full swing. The scent was beginning to build, the sweet aroma of fried onions and garlic, the rich, promising smell of the tomato and pepper base, the atta, bubbling and thickening over the hot fire. This was the most critical stage. Mama Efe stirred the massive pot with a wooden paddle that was almost as tall as she was. It was a dance she had done 1,000 times. A scoop, a turn, a scrape of the bottom to make sure nothing burned. Then a minor crisis. Inside the house, two of her sons, Uncle Chike and Uncle Ben, were having a loud, passionate argument about which English football team was better. It was a weekly ritual, but today it was threatening to spill a drink on the new white rug. "Eh, these children will not kill me," Mama Efe exclaimed, handing the paddle to Auntie BC. "Watch this pot, don't let it burn. I am coming." She wiped her hands on her wrapper and marched inside, a general heading off to quell a rebellion. This was Emeka's chance. He had been lurking near the kitchen door, his little tin of smoked paprika feeling heavy in his pocket. His pride was a little wounded. He wanted to contribute, to show his value. He genuinely believed he could make the jollof even better. It would be his special gift to his grandmother on her birthday. She would taste it and be amazed by his culinary genius. "Auntie BC," he said, strolling over with a confident smile. "Mama said I should come and check the seasoning." Auntie BC, flustered by the responsibility of guarding the sacred pot, looked at him. "Eh? She said so?" Yes, Emeka lied smoothly. "She said it might need a little something extra. My taste buds are very refined." He peered into the pot. The bubbling red stew was hypnotic. This was it, his moment. While Auntie BC was distracted by fanning the flames, Emeka quickly opened his tin. He didn't just add a pinch. Oh no. He wanted his contribution to be noticed. He tipped a generous amount into the pot, a cascade of dark red powder disappearing into the bubbling stew. For good measure, he stirred it in vigorously with a smaller spoon. "Perfect," he whispered to himself, a triumphant smile on his face, a modern twist on a classic. He didn't see Funke, his younger sister, watching him from the doorway, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and fascination. He just gave her a quick wink,
as if to say, "This is our little secret," before strolling away, feeling incredibly pleased with himself. The pot kept bubbling, the fire kept crackling, and slowly, subtly, the smell began to change. It wasn't a bad smell, not at all, but it wasn't the smell of Mama Efe's jollof rice. The familiar, comforting aroma of pure, unadulterated party jollof was now mixed with something else, a sharp, smoky, almost alien scent that didn't belong. The aunties started to notice. They would walk past the pot, sniff the air, and get a confused look on their faces. "Is Mama using a different kind of seasoning today?" one whispered to another. "I don't know. It smells foreign." By the time Mama Efe returned from settling the football war by threatening to ban both her grown sons from watching TV for a month, the rice had been added to the pot and sealed with foil and a lid to steam. The damage was done. She walked back to her stool, took a deep breath of the air around her pot, and froze. Her eyes narrowed. Her nostrils flared slightly. She tilted her head like a scientist detecting a flaw in a critical experiment. All the chatter in the backyard faded into a nervous hum. Everyone could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The queen had sensed that something was wrong in her kingdom. She walked to the pot. She didn't open it. She just stood over it, her hand resting on the warm lid. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply one more time.
Auntie BC began to sweat. "Mama, everything is fine. The fire is good. Someone," Mama Efe said, a voice dangerously quiet, "has touched my pot." It wasn't a question, it was a statement of fact. An hour later, the moment of truth arrived. The guests were all seated under the canopies set up in the compound. The tables were laden with other dishes, fried chicken, moi moi, salad, pounded yam, but everyone knew what the main event was. The air was buzzing with anticipation when two men carried the giant jollof pot and placed it in the center of the serving area. Mama Efe herself had the honor of opening it. A great cloud of steam billowed out, and a collective "ah" of appreciation went through the crowd. The rice was beautiful. It had the perfect color, a deep, inviting red. Each grain was separate and glistening. Visually, it was a masterpiece, but the smell was just wrong. The serving began. Plates were piled high. Emeka, sitting proudly next to Zainab, took a large portion. "Wait till you taste this," he whispered to her. "It's going to have a little extra kick." Zainab smiled nervously. She had a very bad feeling about this. The first bites were taken, and then a strange thing happened. A wave of silence rippled through the party. People would take a spoonful, chew thoughtfully, and then a look of profound confusion would cross their faces. They wouldn't say anything because you don't disrespect the food at a 75th birthday party, especially not the host's legendary jollof. But their faces said it all. Little Tunde, a 5-year-old cousin, was not bound by such social rules. He took a bite, made a face, and shouted, "Mommy, this rice tastes funny." His mother shushed him immediately, but it was too late. The dam had broken. Uncle Chike, a man who considered himself a jollof connoisseur, took a bite. He chewed, swallowed, and then looked at his brother Uncle Ben. "What is this taste? Is it barbecue sauce?" "No," Uncle Ben argued. "It's more like smoked fish that has gone to university." The whispers grew louder. "It's too smoky. It's not sweet. There's an aftertaste of something I don't know." Emeka's face had gone pale. This was not the reaction he had expected. He had expected gasps of delight, questions about his secret ingredient. Instead, he was getting looks of bewilderment and disappointment.
Oh my God.
He took a bite of his own serving. The taste was overwhelming. The delicate balance of sweet tomato, hot pepper, and rich stock was completely bulldozed by the aggressive, artificial smokiness of the paprika. It tasted pretentious. It tasted wrong. Mama Efe hadn't eaten. She just watched. She watched the faces of her children, her grandchildren, her friends. She saw their polite confusion, their quiet disappointment. Her masterpiece, the culinary soul of this celebration, was a failure. Her heart didn't just break, it hardened. She stood up. The compound fell silent. Even little Tunde stopped complaining. Mama Efe walked slowly to the center of the yard, her face carved from stone. She looked at the faces of her family, one by one. Her eyes finally rested on her grandson. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. Her voice was just above a whisper, but it carried across the entire compound with the weight of absolute authority. "Who?" she asked, her eyes boring into Emeka, "touched my rice?" The silence was so total you could hear a pin drop on the grass. Every eye turned to Emeka. His confident posture had vanished. He was shrinking in his chair. Zainab looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Emeka opened his mouth, But no words came out. He looked to his sister, Funke, for help. But Funke, under the immense pressure of her grandmother's gaze, simply pointed a trembling finger. "It was Emeka!"
Oh my
she
God.
squeaked. "He put something from London inside." The collective gasp was almost comical. All the scattered pieces of the puzzle clicked into place for everyone at once. The fusion of cultures, the smoked paprika, the quinoa. Emeka had done the unthinkable. The rest of the party was a blur of social horror for Emeka. No one touched the jollof rice again. The aunties quickly organized an emergency alternative. They fried up some spaghetti. It was a sad substitute. The soul of the party was gone. Emeka tried to explain himself to his grandmother, babbling about flavor profiles and modern techniques. Mama Efe just looked at him, her eyes filled not with anger anymore, but with a deep, profound disappointment. "You think my food is a game," she said softly, her voice heavy. "You think it is something for you to play with, to improve. No, Mama, I was just trying to help, to add something special for your birthday." "Special," she cut him off. "Let me tell you about special, my son. The way I cook this rice is the way my mother taught me, and it is the way her mother taught her. When I taste this rice, I taste my childhood in the village. I taste the day your grandfather first came to my father's house to ask for my hand. I tasted the naming ceremony for your own father. Every ingredient has a memory. Every step has a meaning. It is not a recipe, Emeka. It is our story in a pot." She pointed to the now abandoned pot of rice. "You did not add flavor. You raised the story." Emeka had never felt so small in his life. He had wanted to show how worldly he was, but he had only shown how little he understood. He looked at Zainab, who gave him a look of deep sympathy, but he knew he had embarrassed her too. He had messed with something sacred, not out of malice, but out of a foolish modern pride. And in doing so, he had insulted the one person he wanted to honor most. The next morning, the compound was quiet. The party guests were gone. The only evidence of the celebration was a sad, giant pot of reddish-brown rice sitting by the back door untouched. Emeka hadn't slept. At the crack of dawn, he went to his grandmother's room and knocked softly. She opened the door, already dressed. She looked at him, her face tired. "Mama, I am sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am so sorry. I was a fool." Mama Efe just looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "Words are easy, Emeka, come." She didn't lead him to the living room for a lecture. She led him straight out the front door and towards the bustling morning market. She didn't say a word. She just handed him a large, empty basket. For the next 2 hours, Emeka was her silent apprentice. He followed her through the crowded market lanes. He watched as she picked out the plumpest, reddest tomatoes, haggling with the seller in rapid-fire Yoruba. He watched as she selected the perfect onions, tapping each one to test its firmness. He watched her buy the exact brand of parboiled rice she trusted, refusing all others. He didn't speak. He just watched, carried the basket, and learned. Back in the kitchen, the lesson continued. There was no giant pot this time, just a small, regular one for the family. "Watch," she said. And he did. He watched her blend the peppers, not too smooth. He watched her fry the onions until they were sweet and golden, not a second longer. He watched her add the tomato paste and let it fry to get rid of the sourness, a step he had never even known existed. She explained every step, not as a recipe, but as a feeling. "You have to listen to the oil," she said. "It will tell you when it is hot enough. You have to watch the stew. It will tell you when all the water is gone and it is time for the stock." She made him taste the stew before the rice went in. It was perfect. Simple, rich, and deeply flavorful. It tasted like home. When it was time to add the rice and seal the pot, she let him do it. He carefully poured in the washed rice, stirred it into the stew, added the chicken stock, and then covered the pot. "Now," she said, turning the fire down low, "we wait. No peeking, no improving. We let it do its work. We respect the process." They sat in the quiet kitchen, the gentle aroma of proper jollof rice slowly filling the air. It was the best smell in the world. When the rice was finally ready, Mama Efe served 2 plates, one for him and one for her. She gestured for him to call Zainab, who came and sat with them quietly. Emeka took his first bite. The rice was tender, not mushy. Each grain was infused with the rich flavor of the stew. There was no harsh aftertaste, no confusing smokiness. There was just the perfect, timeless, incredible taste of his grandmother's jollof rice. It was without a doubt the most delicious thing he had ever eaten. He looked up at his grandmother, his eyes shining. She was already watching him, a small, knowing smile on her face. She had forgiven him. More than that, she had taught him. The lesson was clear, and it was one he would never forget. It wasn't about the smoked paprika. It wasn't about quinoa or fusion or being modern. It was about respect. It was about listening more than talking. It was about understanding that some things are perfect just the way they are. Not because they can't be changed, but because they are full of stories. And you never, ever mess with an African grandmother's story, especially when it's a story in a pot of jollof rice.